All right. I told you if you have any questions about body language, just ask me. Just email them to me at bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'd answer them. You email me some questions, and I'm going to answer them. Here's the first one. Do the pupils of psychopaths dilate or constrict when they see fear? Good question, because they dilate. We know that from scientific studies that have become available in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's something semi-new. When a psychopath sees fear, that's one of the only things that flips their switches, makes them go, yeah. So their eyes dilate. When you and I see something that we like or that we're interested in, or a person, if I see my wife, my eyes dilate a little bit because I love her and she loves me, and that's my person. When you see your person, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your eyes will dilate a little bit because you're interested in that person. That's your person, right? Or if you see a puppy, or you see a little kitten or something, then they'll dilate a little bit because you think it's adorable, and your eyes will dilate because your brain is trying to take in as much information as it possibly can about whatever it's looking at when that happens, and you get those feelings because the light is better, the focus is better. It's trying to see all it can see, your brain, through your eyes. As corny as that sounds, but that's what's happening. And that's why that they do that. Now, the psychopath, same thing. The only expression they really identify with or recognize over and over and very quickly is fear. They see that and go, I know what that is. I know what that is, my thing, because they like that. So I won't go off on a big psychopath jag. Okay, what is the difference between psychopaths and narcissists? Back to the psychopath jag. All psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths. Very important. Remember that. All psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths. Now, you can have a clinical narcissist, a hardcore narcissist, who will actually get right up there next to being a psychopath, really close. There's nothing wrong with their amygdala. In some cases, they do have a little bit of empathy for people or situations or little animals and things. And they're not a psychopath. They're not a clinical psychopath. But the clinical narcissist can be dangerous, because not all, like, for example, a lot of people think that they think psychopaths are brilliant. They think they're really smart and all that. Some of them, like I've said on here before, are just idiots, just a doofus. They just happen to be psychopaths because that part of the brain isn't working properly, the amygdala, which is in the limbic system, or part of the limbic system. So in a hardcore narcissist, you'll see them treat their family, their children, like they mean nothing. They'll say, oh, the children are okay, and they're not okay. They're not keeping an eye on them. They're not making sure that they're safe, those kind of things. And you'll hear the children say as they grow older, it's all about you, isn't it, Mom? It's all about you, or it's always all about my dad. Always, everything is about him. And you think, well, it's the kids talking about their parents. Listen to that. Listen to that when you hear it. Nothing you can do about it. You shouldn't do anything, try to do anything about it. But you may be most likely you're dealing with a child who has a narcissistic parent. So keep that in mind. And when you hear little kids say that, it's always all about Mom. Keep an eye on that mom, especially if you're friends with them. Psychopaths are fascinating, but narcissists are just as fascinating if you get up in it. A lot of stuff you can learn about narcissism in books and on videos if you watch the right things on YouTube and you learn from the right people who have valid information that isn't incorrect and isn't incomplete. So you've got to make sure you know who you're getting your information from. You got to check them out. But I think narcissists are fascinating. You would too if you get into it and learn where they're coming from and how that works, because you can actually control them like they control other people. You can control the narcissist if you look at it as just an ego. Told that story on here a few videos back about where I bet someone I could make this narcissist, this hardcore narcissist, just wait on me hand and foot. And they did. And all I did was treat them like an ego. So you have to know how to brush up against it at the right time to settle it down and get to do things you want to do. And you're manipulating it. It's horrible to think you're manipulating a human. But if you don't like that human because of that personality type, and you do these little things that will control you, go, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. one of the things I think is fascinating as well is when you see narcissists grouped together, not like in a nest, but they'll hang out together because there'll be one that's like the king or queen of the narcissist group. Just say a famous person, an actor, a musician, that kind of thing. And that's your level one narcissist. That's up here at the top. Then these little level twos are feeding off of that narcissist by telling everyone else how they hang out with that narcissist. Nobody knows this famous person is a narcissist because nobody, you probably don't know him well. Most people don't know him well. And most people don't want to say a person's a narcissist because they're probably paying their, mortgages by working for them. They're getting paid, right? But you see all these little second tier narcissists, which fascinate me to no end because they are narcissists as well. And they're just as bad as the one at the top, but they know enough to know that they've got to be cool about it. And they use that narcissist not in person, but they'll go out and tell people, oh, this is one of my great friends. You probably know. And it'll be one of the first things out of their mouth. First 15 or 20 minutes you meet them, that's when they're going to tell you that they're friends, this famous person. And they'll take on this air of, that's who I hang with and stuff. But that's a narcissist feeding off another narcissist. It's fascinating. If you get into it. Because there's the third tier that's right below that, which is doing the same thing as the second tier, but they don't have as much power because the second tier narcissist isn't as potent socially. I'm not going to get into that deep either because we'll be here talking about it forever. Are there psychopaths like Bundy, Ramirez, and Dahmer still out there? We're on a psychopath jag. Yeah. They are. There's still some out there, not just some. There are probably quite a few of those, but they just haven't been caught yet. You can these days, after you may watch a lot of true crime stuff. I don't watch a whole lot of true crime. It's not, doesn't, she was dealing with a channel with a behavior panel. Most of our thing is about true crime, but none of us sit around and watch true crime shows, except Greg when he's trying to find something interesting for us to watch. Or if something pops up on my YouTube feed, I'll watch it if it's good. Interesting. With the way social media is today and YouTube and everything, you can watch these videos and see what that person did, and you can see what didn't work for them and what did work for them. And these psychopaths will take that information and they'll add it to their protocol of how they're other people, right? So that's there are a bunch of them out there. I got to watch my mouth on this. I got to watch what I'm saying. But there are a bunch of them out there. They just haven't been caught yet. Quite often, what you don't know is in your hometown, if you live in a big city, there've probably been in your city 2 or 3 serial killers over the last 10 years. You just didn't know about it because it's not that big a deal in the news anymore when somebody kills 2 or 3 people. 2 or 3 people and you're a serial killer, right? So it may be somebody killing homeless people, that kind of thing. And the police are looking for them, but they don't go on the news and go, oh, we got a serial killer on the loose and he's killing or she's killing homeless people. No, they don't say that. Every now and then when the number gets up, 5, 6 of them, then you'll see it pop up. You'll see it in the news. But it's 2 or 3, 4, usually not. But I'm telling you, that's happening. Talk to a cop. They'll tell you, I would assume. If you know one, ask them. Say, have we ever had and you have to start off with serial killer. You start off with, do you run into a situation where somebody's killed 3 or 4 people in a row, not at the same time? They may say, oh, you mean a serial killer? Because that's what they are. But they don't come right out and tell everybody there's one on the loose or they haven't captured him yet. They may point out that somebody's doing that, once the numbers get up. But it would say he's around 2 or 3. You usually won't hear much about it. But it's happening. They're out there. And the number on that they think is about 10%, somewhere between 7 and 10% of the population is psychopaths. And not all psychopaths are dangerous. Not all of them are mean. They're not raised in an environment that nurtures violence. So they're not mean and they're not violent. They don't do anything horrible. They're usually just wonderful people. You get to know them, like them. Nothing wrong with them. They do all kinds of jobs and do things, but they're not violent. They're not the extreme psychopathic personality that you're used to seeing on TV and in movies. So there are a lot of them out there. Since you've been on YouTube, have you had anyone you've interrogated recognize you? Yeah, yeah, once. Went into, and it was a bank, went in to talk to this person. And as soon as I walked in, they went, nope. And I said, what do you mean, nope? And they said, I know who you are. I'm not doing this. And I said, well, what does knowing who I am have to do with it? He said, I know why you're here. I watch your show. I know what we're doing here. Now, if it were me, I wouldn't have said anything, because by them saying that, if I had talked my way into staying, which I tried for like a half an hour, if they weren't having any of it, then I know from them telling me that they're into body language. They're trying to learn as much as they can about how people behave and how they look like, how they look when they're being honest and how they look when they're being deceptive. So if I was that person, I wouldn't have said anything. They could have played me for a while until I finally figured it out, because you can figure it out after a while. You can use fake body language for a little while, but you can't do it for, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, ever how long it's going to take. So you'll after a while that stuff starts going away, and you literally forget that's what you're trying to do. And whoever's talking to you, if they're professional, they'll be able to see that. It doesn't take that long to be able to go, oh, okay, I see what's happening. But still, if that were me, I wouldn't have said anything. So I thought that was a bad move on her part. All right. When you meet someone for the first time, what do you like, and what bothers you about that person? What do you look for? A lot of things, some of the same things you look for. When I first run into a person or meet a person, let's say it's somebody that I, for some reason, know who they are. Let's say they're somebody, for whatever reason, somebody's cousin or something. I've never met him, but I've seen pictures of him on my wife's feed or on her phone or something, and I know who that person is. I'm in the grocery store, let's say. I say, hey, you don't know me, but you're so-and-so, right? You know my wife. Oh, yeah, I do. Automatically, what I'm looking for is how that person approaches me. Are they wary of me? Which in some cases, they should be wary of whoever they're talking to. They don't know if that's true. I may be trying to lure them out to the parking lot or walk them out to the parking lot, and I know I parked next to them because they're my target, and just pull them into a van. I've got somebody else out there too. You never know, so you got to be careful, But one of the first things I look for is how, usually I stick my hand out to shake their hand. What kind of handshake is that? You hear that a lot. You got to have a firm handshake on that. I don't want that. I want to make sure that's good, because if it's not, it's like if they give you a fish, you're having somebody just throw their hand out there, and you're just hanging on with this hand and doing that. Or they give you those weird ones, where they put their finger on your wrist and they're shaking your hand like some weird business thing. Don't do that. Don't do that. It just irks people to death. And I always go, what are you doing with your finger there, man? I always ask them about it, because at the Entrepreneur Center, a lot of times people will come in after reading all these, which they should be reading, these books on how to be successful, how to act, and how to do these things. But they'll run into people like I'm telling you to watch out for sometimes. You got to make sure the person you're getting information from, that information is valid, because that person has to be valid. And if they get it from some person who's a poser, and they tell them, when you shake their hand, stick your finger there on the wrist because it means something, whatever it's supposed to mean. I don't know what it means, to be honest with you, but I had people do that, these weird handshakes. And I always grab their hand and go, what are you doing? What are you doing with this finger, man? Why is that doing that? What's going on here? And you talk about putting somebody at, making them uncomfortable, that will do it. But I was to do it to kind of mess with them, because I knew they were going to be there for a while at the Entrepreneur Center, and I was probably going to have to deal with them some. So I like to mess with them to see what I'm dealing with, So a good handshake, see what kind of handshake they have. Do they back up a little? How do they stand? Are they square off when they're talking, or do they kind of stand to the side? When you see two guys meet, they'll shake hands. Hey, what's happening? They'll kind of turn to the side a little bit. It's just this unconscious thing we do, because we don't want to be all, straight ahead and, hey, what's going on? Like if you're fighting or something. So it's when you first meet someone. So if you don't turn to a little bit to the side, start doing that, because it helps that person subconsciously know everything's going to be fine. You're not being aggressive toward them, but don't take that as that thing where people say, always have your hands on the table in a meeting because people think you'll have a weapon. because of the way we've evolved. That's not true. That's not true. Nobody thinks you have a weapon. If you're a police officer and you're walking up to a car and can't see someone's hands, that's different. If you're in a meeting and you can't see someone's hands, the reason we like to see people's hands is because they communicate better when they use their hands. We can understand them better, believe it or not, because they use illustrators, like I did just then. Illustrators. It's when your brain emphasizes specific words or phrases. I talk about those all the time because they're so important. It's one of the first things you see when you're talking to somebody. So I look for those. But sometimes they'll stand there and they'll do like that with their arms, hey, which is fine. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing when someone goes, you know what I heard about you? Or they'll say, I know your mom, or I know your dad, or something like that, and they cross their arms. It means absolutely nothing. So those kind of things I just dismiss because it's just that person being themselves or relaxing, or being relaxed is being themselves. So another thing I look for is I look at the way they're dressed. What's going on? You're out in public. Did they just come from home and they just pop it in real quick? Like, screw it, I'm going to go to Target real quick. And they run in, they're wearing like their morning clothes. They haven't really had a shower or anything yet, but for some reason they've had to go to Target and get something, or the grocery store. So I look for that because that tells you how important the world is to that person. So if somebody comes in, if I see somebody in the store and they're dressed like in their, I can tell they haven't had a shower yet. They got a hat on or backwards, or you can usually tell when they haven't had a shower or anything yet. And they've just gotten up and come down there. I seem to like those people more than those people that are walking around all dressed up and everything, because I know that person doesn't take life as seriously as other people. You got to take life seriously, but not that serious. I think it's okay if you run down there and do that, running people And if they don't like you because that's the way you are, you probably want to hang out with them anyway. If you're dressed that way, they don't like you, so no big deal. But I look for what they're wearing. And sometimes if it's the grocery store, like we're talking about, I'll try to see what's in their basket, see what they're eating. Are they eating junk food? Are they eating health food? What are they doing? They got a dog? They got a cat? They got a little kid at the house? What kind of cereal are they buying if they're getting cereal? Is it Captain Crunch? Is it Fruit Loops? Or is it like, Bran Flakes? Or, what are they getting? Is it healthy stuff? Or is it oatmeal? What are they getting? I remember one time, there's a famous bass player named Rudy Sarzo, and he played in that band Quiet Riot. And then when Quiet Riot's guitar player, Randy Rhoads, got hired by Ozzy Osbourne to play in his band, then he brought Rudy Sarzo with him. And that was his touring band. There's a couple other guys, Lee Kerslake, and to make a long story short, somebody else made the albums or played on the albums, but Tommy Aldridge is the drummer, and Rudy Sarzo, the bass player, they didn't play on the album. They were just doing the tour for the first things, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. And they were on the covers, and the guys who played on the albums weren't. But Randy Rhoads, the guitar player, did play on the album, right? So for me, when I was at Berkeley in the 80s, Berkeley College of Music, I was like one of the first like metal people at Berkeley. So I had like long hair and 2 earrings and the whole thing, because that was my thing. You got to look, even though I didn't want to go tour with anybody, I wasn't a performer or a road musician or anything. You have to take on the look of whoever whatever you want to sound like. So when people meet you, they say, oh, that must be a metal guy. So a lot of those dance songs back in the 80s with those like heavy metal guitars and stuff on them that your parents liked, I played most of those, or I played a lot of them. That was me most of the time, because that's what I got hired to do, because I was like the metal guy. And I was one of the first heavy metal guys, and not heavy metal like they have today, but it was like, the hair bands and stuff, that kind of stuff. That I was the guy, I was the call guy for that, for those solos on your record, right? So anyway, so I was into to Randy Rhoads, who played for Ozzy Osbourne, and the bass player was Rudy Sarzo. I'm going somewhere with this. Hang with me. So my brother and I are in Ralph's in Los Angeles, and Ralph's is a grocery store there. In the South, we have Kroger, and out in Los Angeles, it's Ralph's. So there's a Ralph's that everybody goes to. So we're at Ralph's for whatever reason. We're getting something. And I look over, and damn, there's Rudy Sarzo, the guy that used to be in Quiet Riot, and then he played with Ozzy Osbourne. He was famous. This is 30 years later, And so I see him, and he's in line. He's got his basket, and he's in line at the grocery store. And we're walking by. I said, hey, man, I'm not going to bother you. But geez, I remember when you first started with, with Ozzy, and this is a, big fan. I've seen you a couple of times live, and, just thought it was awesome. Thought I'd say hi. And he was the nicest guy, sweetest guy in the world. Really, really nice, right? So as I'm looking at him and I'm doing my initial scan, he's dressed cool, everything. He's not all trying to be famous or anything. I look over at his basket. You know what was in his basket? Rudy Sarzo, this guy I thought was the coolest guy in the world. There's nothing wrong with what's in his basket, but I'm going to tell you what was in it. 2 frescas and a plunger. Hand to God. 2 frescas and a plunger. And my brother saw him about the same time I did, and he just looked at me. I looked back at him. And this guy that we do, this famous bass player was just talking, yeah, man, we're just talking. I could not get these 2 frescas and a plunger off my mind. And that's all we talked about for like the next 3 weeks was what Rudy Sarzo had in his basket at the grocery store at Ralph's. Then again, you never know who you're going to run into at the grocery store, especially Ralph's in LA. Okay. What is that on the mug you drink out of? Who is that on the mug you drink out of? Is that you? I think you might be talking about this. I mean, you see that well. That's actually Kyle Dunnigan, and he does this character on his show called Wendell, named Wendell, and Wendell reads all the time. And so I got one of the mugs from that. So I don't have one of my behavior panel mugs down here. But so a lot of times I'll drink out of the behavior panel mug, but if I've had it that day or the day before and it's not out of the dishwasher yet, I'll use my Wendell mug or my Colombo mug. So, but I think that's probably because I've heard people in the comments when they go, is that you on the mug? Why does it look so weird? But it's Kyle Dunnigan with a face, swap thing on him. So he looks that way. It's, if you ever get a chance to watch Kyle stuff, you should do it. He's hilarious. Go look up Wendell. Let's put Kyle Dunnigan, Wendell, and you'll see what I'm talking about. What are confirmation nods? What are the confirmation nods you talk about? The confirmation nods are this. Quite often, when someone is saying no, but they're saying yes, let's say, is that your dog out in the car? Let's pretend you asked me that, and I would go, no. And notice how that's a real small little thing like this. No. I just barely did my head up and down as a yes, right? Doesn't mean for sure I'm lying to you. Doesn't mean for sure that I'm being deceptive. All you're seeing is that. However, quite often when someone's being deceptive, that will leak through. They want to say yes because their brain's going, dude, we can't do this. We can't lie. We shouldn't do that. What are you going to do? You're going to say no, and then we know the answer is yes. So part of your brain's going, yes, that's my dog out in the car. That's my dog out in the parking lot. That's the thing about body language. We can't say for sure every time. You'll hear people say that every time you see this, it means that. Don't listen to that person. Those are the people I'm telling you about that you shouldn't listen to because they're just reading what they read and puking back what they've gotten from Google to you, right? So when somebody just does that barely, that's usually sort of a leak of yes when they're saying no. However, if the person says, did you do that? And said, no, I didn't do it. It's almost like you're illustrating with your head on those words. They're confirming the no. So that's a confirmation nod. No, I'm telling you I didn't do it, like that. But if they said no, and it's just that really light head shake, no, that's okay. But if they say yes, that's what you want to watch out for. Because like the no could be like that, but it's a confirmation, not a confirmation nod, but a confirmation shake because it's going with the words they're saying. But if they say yes, and they may back up a little bit like that. The head just barely goes back and forth. Yes. Why don't you ask some more questions? It's time for more questions about that. Doesn't mean for sure they're lying to you. And don't go, oh, why'd you do that? Don't bring it up. Just know that, see it, and go, okay, well, because it's sure, I thought I saw you with a dog like that. Is that keep asking questions about the situation, whatever it is. But a confirmation nod is when you see it go like this. No, I'm telling you, I didn't do it. They're confirming the no. Or they're confirming the yes. So that's a confirmation nod. All right. Body language books like yours have drawings of the body language we're supposed to observe. Does that mean the graphic artist is also a body language expert? That's a good question, actually. No, because in my book, there are drawings in there of what's going on body language-wise. I had a great graphic artist do that. Fantastic. And so what they said was, as I was doing, they said, look, as I was writing the book, when you have these things you're explaining, find a picture that's close to what you're talking about or exactly what you're talking about if you can find it, and then talk to the graphic artist and they'll make it what it needs to be. You'll get a look at them and it'll be, you'll be able to straighten out what isn't happening there. Is it correct or is it incorrect? Excuse me. So I collected pictures as I went along and wrote that book, the Understanding Body Language. That's the book I wrote. And sometimes I would use stuff from TV, like something from Jimmy Fallon's show or a comedian or something like that. And then there was a couple others from working with entrepreneurs. What I would do is when I was training to pitch, or when I do train to pitch, I video it. And that way I can show them the things they're doing. I'll say, this is why this, even though you do know about this, people are going to doubt what you're saying because you did this, or you're standing this way, or you're not doing this. So I step back a little bit. You can't be doing that. You're getting your information from your financial guy, but you're spewing it like you know it. So you have to look like you know it. If they ask you a question about it, you say, well, let's have my financial guy explain that in the details to you. So one of the entrepreneurs there, a very successful entrepreneur now, this cat's name is Tasia. He has Tasia, one of my buddies. And he's from India. His parents are from India. And I had a picture of him doing this, and as he was pitching something, because we'd gone through and fixed all the things where he was presenting, something or giving his pitch. And from these videos, I could grab screenshots from him and go, okay, I'm going to use this for this picture, and I'd send it to the artist, and he would work them up and then, get back to me. So these ones of Tasia, I said, hey man, I think what's going to happen is I want to use these pictures in my book that I'm writing. And some of them, 3 or 4 of them are of you, and you're doing. And I said, I'm going to send you the pictures. Is that cool? So I sent him the pictures. He's like, yeah, man, use whatever picture you want. So he got all excited. I got all excited. I was like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so glad you're going to be in my book. So when I got the book, it was finished. It was they send you the finished copy once you go through all the edits and do the things you're supposed to do, right? And then they show you they'll stick the pictures that you sent them, the workup drawings of those in there to make sure everything's correct. But when these got back, every picture of Tasia, he went from being a guy to being this Black woman, an African-American woman. So every time Tasia's in there, he's a woman, and he's doing this. And I'll see if I can find a picture of it and put it up here for you. But it's so it was pretty funny, So you never know when he comes back what the finished. In my case, anyway, I didn't know. Half these people, I thought who they were. Well, this one girl that I had worked with, she was a man. She was a little old man, little pudgy man. And I was so embarrassed. I said, I'm so sorry. You're sweet as you can be. And here they start you at this pudgy little old man. But that's because you have to have different things going on. Mine were all in the same age group because of the Entrepreneur Center. I was using a lot of the entrepreneurs from their body language, right? And so I felt so bad for her because she's so sweet. But Tasia's was the funniest because he was a woman. And he told, I think he told people, yeah, I want to be in the book. And I was like, yeah, he's going to be in the book. And that's where it came out. But then the girl, bless her heart, she's so sweet. But now she's a pudgy little old man in the art world. All right. What does it mean when someone adjusts or plays with the space right below their nose? It's this little thing right here. Usually they're using that as an adapter. Sometimes when people get nervous, they'll start goofing around with that. You'll see them get uncomfortable. They'll do that or goof with their nose, and they'll do that right there. Do you know what that little area is called? You ready? The philtrum. Yeah, it's called the philtrum. I asked my dad that when I was a little kid, and we were watching. I can't remember what we were. I used to know what we were watching. I can't remember what it was. And I said, because this guy kept doing that. And I said, when's he doing? He's doing that. And he said, well, when people become uncomfortable, he's acting, but this and that. I said, what do you call that? I said, this is your lip. That's your nose. What is this called? And my dad said, it's your philtrum. I said, oh, okay, great. So my mother and my grandmother were in the kitchen. So I get up and go in the kitchen. And I said to my grandmother, and my mom's standing there, and I said, you want to see my philtrum? And my grandmother smacked me. Hand to God. So philtrum, don't forget it. Very important. Watch who you talk about your philtrum around. All right. What does it mean when someone gazes at you for too long? Okay, it depends on where you are, what the situation is, and who you're dealing with. So to figure out who you're dealing with, let's say you're in, let's say you're in a bar, okay, and you see somebody, you just notice somebody looking at you. Usually when you're looking at someone from across the room, and they look at you, they'll look away. A few more minutes, they'll look back, and they'll keep talking and doing what they're doing. Then they'll look back, and you're kind of, hey, what's going on? Then maybe they'll send you a drink or whatever it is that goes on in bars and stuff now. So if that person doesn't break eye contact with you, if they don't stop looking at you, quite often women go, oh, he's taken with me, or, this guy's into me, and guys will do the same thing. Oh, she's into me. What's happening quite often is this. We talked about psychopaths earlier, right? You may be looking at a psychopath looking at you, because when you're dealing with a psychopath, remember, they don't have empathy. Their amygdala, the part of the brain, which does so many more things than this, but one of the most important things it does is, put this down, is help you with emotions. That's how you feel. It's one of the things that enable you to feel sympathy, empathy, things like that. So when someone's staring at you for that long, if you start looking at somebody for that long, it becomes uncomfortable, especially if you don't know them. So you look away because it's uncomfortable, right? But if they keep looking at you, the psychopath doesn't know that makes you uncomfortable because it's not making them uncomfortable, and it should. Think about this now, what we're talking about, okay? It's that long stare. If they don't look away, or you're talking to someone and they just keep looking at you like this and don't let go of that eye contact when they should, and you start feeling uncomfortable, and so much so that you're afraid you can't hardly look away because you feel like they're staring a hole in your head, even when you're close, watch out. They may be fine, may not be anything wrong with them. They may be from, like I said earlier, when in another video, and the video before this, I think, when you're dealing with body language, one of the first things you got to decide is what you're seeing in body language. Is this something that's cultural or something that's limbic? Is this person acting this way because of where they're from, where they live in another country, from another culture, and where that's normal? Or are you seeing this behavior happen because it's something firing off neurologically? Okay, that's one of the first things you need to think about when you start observing body language properly. Okay, so if someone's looking at you and they don't break eye contact, be careful. I'm not saying tell everybody, this guy's probably a psychopath, won't quit looking at him. The guy might really like you. He might think you're the most beautiful thing in the world and just can't quit looking at you, But if he keeps looking at you and won't break eye contact with you, heads up. Just pay attention to that. And that's called the psychopathic stare. I did a video on that with what's her face, the girl that Elizabeth Holmes, that's her name. Watch that video on this channel about Elizabeth Holmes, and I explain the psychopathic stare there. Go into a lot more details than we're going through here, right? But that's important because if you're in a lot of public places and in this situation, especially if you're a girl or woman and you're in bars and things like or clubs and meeting people, watch that one. I think that'll open your eyes up, pardon the pun, to a lot of stuff as far as the psychopathic stare goes. So check that out. Okay, so if you have any questions about body language, email me, bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com. I'll answer them on here.